Happy Sunday, my friends, and welcome back into another edition of Prime Sports World. On today's episode of the Prime, we're going to be talking about the NBA and their quote-unquote competitiveness problem. If you were to call it a problem, we're going to have that conversation about competitiveness in the NBA. I'm, of course, your host, David On Point. Helping right there is Israel Rivera. Welcome to the show, my friend. Please like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. Also, Izzy just posted a really interesting article on the Prime Sports World website about the All-Star Game and ways to rebrand the All-Star Game. So go check out that content. Izzy, if you can post a link to that website in the chat somewhere, so maybe we can check out that article if they wanted to. But yeah, I'm David Huppin. There's Israel Rivera. Let's talk about the NBA's competitive conversation. But first, happy Sunday. How are you?
Man, doing good, man. Glad we, got the website up and running this weekend. I know it's just only one article. Still got to do some updating on putting the podcast episodes on the RSS feed. I just got so backlogged on it, and it takes forever. But I'll get it updated so you guys can, because I don't want to just put like the new shows that we make, on there without backlogging all the 100, plus shows that I haven't put on there yet. And we make so much content every day that, it's hard to get on there. But yeah, man, you guys, watch out for more articles coming from me. Hopefully I'll get TJ start writing for us. Maybe a couple other people start writing. But yeah, man, should be a good read, and hopefully you guys like it. So.
And that kind of trickles into the conversation that we're going to have today. We're going to talk about competitiveness conversation. We'll talk about the NBA. Just some quick numbers here. Scoring at an all-time high. NBA efficiency ratings up 5 points from where it was 5 years ago. Team scoring as in whole is up 10 points from where it was 7 years ago. If the season were to end today, over 50 players are averaging over 20 points per game. That would be a record. With the increased scoring, that also means games tend to be less close, leading to more blowouts. I know we had like a 70-point blowout. We also had something I've never seen before on TNT. The game was so lopsided. TNT actually took the game off TV. I've never, ever in my entire life of watching basketball on a Thursday night on TNT seen them change the game that was on national television. That has never happened before. Statistics show that fewer fouls are actually being called today than any other era of last year. Rules geared towards the offensive players. Teams tend to throw in the towel, as you kind of referenced it a couple times. You're down 10 with a minute and a half to go. You could choose to try to win that game, take some fouls, but most teams lately have just tried to throw in the towel. We'll just fight again another day. You never saw that in the old era of the NBA. And then the lack of competitiveness also has hurting ratings, the lowest ratings in terms of game-to-game watch in years. But the ratings were up during the in-season tournament. Let's talk about this problem and just kind of things that you noticed while watching the NBA.
Yeah. So yeah, let's go to the in-season tournament. I like that you brought that up because David Stern. Oh my God, David Stern. Godly.
Hey,
Adam Silver. David Stern actually would be really disappointed right now.
It would be
going on in the NBA. Yeah. Adam Silver, who was cut from that same cloth, brought the in-season tournament to kind of raise the competitiveness in the regular season, and we saw some playoff kind of level basketball there and meaning pretty much what we like to say is meaningless games, right? Players didn't really have to really play as hard for the in-season tournament, but once you incentivize it and you kind of give it that playoff kind of feel, now players kind of get into it and stuff like that. I don't think that he can do that multiple times in one season. Have an NBA Cup. I did like the in-season tournament, but honestly, we're just I always say this. I say, man, blame Daryl Morey and Mike D'Antonio for this crap. Because the analytics of basketball has just ruined the analytics. Analytics has just ruined the game of basketball, right? It's let's pace in space, let's shoot threes or get layups. There's no, the mid-range game. I know there's a couple people that do the mid-range game, a la DeMar DeRozan
on TV right now.
Yeah, DeMar DeRozan is like the last of the Mohicans when it comes to the mid-range specialists. But it's pretty like teams are just not playing up to the level of defense, like their defensive ability. Like defense takes heart, and it's just like they're not doing it on a nightly basis. And honestly, a lot of these teams, they load up with 3-point shooters or try to, and it's like on a nightly basis. If a team is making more threes than the other team, it's pretty much a foregone conclusion that team is probably going to win the basketball game, right? And it's probably most likely going to be a blowout, right?
Yeah.
The two is more than is 3 is more than 2, and especially if you get a couple stops on one end and you hit a couple threes on one end, I mean the game can go really fast in that season. And then when I see a lot of teams too, I see a lot of teams too as well that when they get down by probably double digit points, now they start chucking them. They get away from all of their
fundamental basketball stuff.
Yeah, and they what they do, they stop running their offense or whatever, and they start chucking up threes. That's another thing. Here we go. I had this argument with somebody else earlier, is that teams back in the day, in the 90s, 80s, even the early 2000s, actually ran sets. They actually ran offensive plays. Now we're in such a pick and roll dominant game. Pick and roll dominant, pick and pop dominant, the stretch that everybody can shoot a 3, stretch 4, stretch 5s. Guys are getting out in transition and shooting threes. Guys are really driving into the hole, into the paint, just to kick it out to a 3-point shooter and just praying that it goes in with some of these guys. And then also I want to, and I'll let you go. Also, the league has gone into a younger phase, right? Every team wants to go younger now these days. Younger is the thing. Like we want to get these one and done guys out of college. There's less and less, 4-year guys even being, put on NBA rosters. If anything, they're either playing overseas or you start playing in the G League, or it takes them some time to even get onto an NBA roster or play consistent minutes. So you're getting guys that aren't as fundamentally sound as you were getting before. So that's where I see the competitiveness problem happening.
But I do think that like this one and done thing isn't a new phenomenon, right?
No,
like one done has been a thing since the beginning of time, like before we had people coming out of high school. But I think that really the way the thing has changed the NBA game the most, and while those iconic pictures of it, like images of like players driving into the lane and having like 3 guys there to try to defend and block that layup, there just isn't those guys in the lane anymore, because everybody can shoot the basketball now. All of those defenders are basically required to defend more space than ever before. Like if you have a power forward, you usually worry about the elbow, you worry maybe sometimes you have to go, but now power forwards, you have to be able to guard people at the 3-point line and worry about them driving on you. Like there was never an era where power forwards would be out of the 3-point line guarding people. Like you don't have the players in the paint that like are contesting shots. You have one guy maybe per team that's considered a rim protecting guy. I also think because guards now have to guard you almost to the half court line, right? Like you basically have to pick people up at half court because people just shoot from wherever these days. Like there's no conscious about shooting the basketball from, like everybody is required to guard more space than ever before.
Yeah, I mean, and shots that you considered, let's say,
bad
15 years ago, that were bad shots, terrible shots, are, hey, that guy can make that shot. Damian Lillard can make those level shots.
Those still are only good shots if they go in. Let's be real.
Absolutely. like when Paul George said that Damian Lillard, when he ended their season in the playoffs, he said that was a bad shot. Like, he's actually not wrong. That was a bad shot. He's not wrong. It just it went in and like, oh, it's one of the best shots in Portland playoff history, right? Or one of the best shots that Damian Lillard ever shot in his career. But he's not wrong with that. And I think you can blame a little bit of that on like the Golden State Warriors, Steph Curry, guys are just the emphasis is on the three ball. It's not the mid range. It's not, like I said, Daryl Morey and Mike D'Antoni, they kind of laid the blueprint out. Every team in the NBA is either looking for in their high percentage, right? So the high percentage shots right there below the rim or right there in the paint, or we're shooting a 3-point shot. And 35 to 40, if you can make 35 to 40% of your 3-pointers in the game, you're looking pretty damn good. So it's a little bit of an issue.
I think the other thing is, like, when you're talking about the mid-range, right? Like, the percentages between shooting a mid-range jump shot and a 3-point jump shot really are basically the same.
At
this point in the NBA. And if you can get 3 points instead of 2, I mean, that's a no-brainer.
Yeah, exactly. But this is where I kind of get to the defensive part. I feel like there's a lot of teams that especially in the NBA this year, we got, Minnesota, who, like, on a day-to-day basis or game-to-game basis for Minnesota, you see that team plays really good D. They got length all over the floor. They play great defense. I'm just giving an example. But then you got a team like the Atlanta Hawks who are so offensive centric, that they're allowing teams to, score at a high rate against them. Every single game with the Hawks is like, a total point spread of 130 to 140 points, which is ridiculous at this rate. And so, when I look at a team like the Pelicans, for example, I always say this: they're either blowing teams out or they're getting blown out, right? Because they live and die by the 3-point shot in a way. And so it's like, if the threes aren't going down, if Brandon Ingram, is not, Zion and Brandon Ingram can create, CJ McCollum can create for the others, but if the others aren't making those shots for the Pelicans, they're getting blown out, because that is just not a good defensive team, in my opinion. And so it's in, I don't have the stats, but just the eye test. And so, I go back to like, teams running more sets, teams playing. It's not a half-court game anymore. It's a fast-paced game. It's a full-court game.
Yeah, I think there's more possessions per game than ever in the history of the league.
It's analytics.
Yeah.
The guys are shooting faster in the shot clock. Like, instead of, breaking down the shot clock, slowing down the game, we don't see teams doing that ever. We don't see them teams doing that at all. Like, even like, Greg Popovich has had to, kind of tailor the Spurs into, because he's got all those young guys into like this fast pace, because none of those guys really know how to play the way that he wants them to play. You don't have guys like a Tony Parker or Manu Ginobili or Tim Duncan or David Robinson or Mario Elie.
But those guys are like all-time great players. But you
don't have guys like Avery Johnson anymore. You don't have those type of guys that can play in the half court. These guys don't even know how to throw a proper post pass.
The Spurs guard play is a whole conversation for a whole.
That's a whole different conversation for another day.
Yeah,
but these guys don't even know how to throw a proper post pass in the NBA. Sometimes I kind of wonder where the fundamentals have gone in the game, and I think it starts at the lower levels. I think in AAU and in high school. I actually thought that this was interesting, that in AAU or in high school, well, I wouldn't say high school, but I would say like AAU basketball, these guys play more games than they actually practice. But on the flip side, in Europe, these guys, the kids, they actually practice more than they play games. So they may play 1 or 2 games a week, but they practice 5 days a week. So the fundamentals are there, and that's why you're starting to see more and more European players start to come in, like a Nikola Jokic, who's fundamentally sound. Luka Doncic, who doesn't have to be the most athletic guy, but he's fundamentally sound. You got all these European guys that are just more fundamentally sound than the American players right now, who may not be as athletic. Look at the slew of French players that are coming into the league. This draft alone, you might have 4 guys from France get drafted in the top 5. That's pretty insane.
And possibly number 1 overall.
Possibly number 1 overall with the Alexander Sarr or whoever else is there's another guy that's a point forward.
You're talking about Topic, I think his name is.
I can't. I don't have it in front of me, but there's
Nikola
four
Topic, I
guys.
think, is the guy's name, the point guard.
Yeah,
That's
there's a whole bunch of guys. And you might have 6 guys from France get picked young guys get picked in the first round, this season. So it's the game from Europe. I mean, you're talking about maybe you might have 10 to 15 picks of guys from Europe getting picked in the first round of the NBA draft just because scouts are looking at these guys and they're like, man, these guys are more fundamentally sound. Like, let's look at the kid from USC, Isaiah Collier, who's the top point guard in America going into USC. He plays with LeBron James' son, who actually, before the season, LeBron James' son, Bronny James, was going to be a first round pick. That's dead. He should probably stay in school another year.
probably, but LeBron's clock is ticking.
No, Bronny's clock is LeBron's clock is ticking.
Anyway,
But Bronny should probably stay in school another year. But Isaiah Collier was picked to be a top 10 pick right before the season, or even in the beginning of the UFC season, and he's dropped out of the first round pretty much. Right. So, the more these scouts get out to look at you, especially the American players, they're starting to see that, man, the game has changed. These European guys are more fundamentally sound. They can dribble, they can pass, they can shoot it. They play team ball, and they can fit more systems in the NBA than generally, an American player can.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of the mock drafts. I don't think they have an American college-born player. A player playing in NCAA right now is not even in the top 10.
No, not at all. Not at all.
But yeah, I mean, if we're talking about this being a problem, obviously, if there's a problem, there has to be a way to fix it. So they tried to incentivize, you can't make all NBA teams anymore if you play a certain amount of games, but that doesn't really impact the on the court product, day-to-day product, where you have players just phoning it in after a couple of quarters. You get down big. Nobody tries to really fight to get back into basketball games anymore. How can the league monitor this, fix this? What can they do for defenders to make these games more quote unquote competitive? Because I still enjoy watching a good basketball game. I watched the Phoenix Sun Los Angeles Lakers game today. It was a very entertaining game. I was very entertained.
I was shocked that Yusuf Nurkic had those numbers against Anthony Davis, but he was out hustling everybody. Grayson Allen had over 20 points. Yeah, Grayson Allen had 23 points.
A player like Grayson Allen in the old NBA doesn't have a 20-point game probably. Like he would have to get into the paint and score at the bucket. Like he's not going to be able. He doesn't score points like that.
And he's one of the best 3-point shooters in the league too.
He's the best.
He's the best, right?
Yeah, percentage wise, yeah, he's the best 3-point shooter in the NBA right now.
It's ridiculous, man. So yeah, obviously, we talk about it all the time, right? The game is tailored more towards the offensive player, right? They got rid of the hand check rule a long time ago. And now when even in the post, when you used to be able to put your arm in guys back, now you pretty much have to play with your belly up, right? You have to play guys like that, and it's kind of it's really at a disadvantage for the defensive player when it comes to these guys that are highly skilled that can pretty much face you up and dribble and counter move and go different ways. I don't know how teams can counter this defensively. I would say that I think what teams really need to start doing is they need to stop going so young. I think if you can go get some more veteran type of players out of
I'm just not sure that's sustainable. Like I just don't think the league. I don't
have an answer for you, David.
I do not think the 3-point shot is going anywhere. Like
it's not going nowhere. It's so hard to defend the 3-point shot in the NBA. The ball is moving so fast
because these teams have run pick and roll sets and they just get wide open looks through good offense. I'm not the fact that maybe defense has gotten poor, which I mean, it hasn't gotten better, but offense has just gotten more dynamic and more. The offensive sets have gotten more interesting and dynamic than they've ever been in the history of the league. Like you can draw up and get an easy shot at will.
Well, I honestly like. I think like some of these offensive sets are pretty simple in my opinion. I think it's really like pick and roll, get to the hole, dish it out, swing it around the perimeter, and hopefully this guy makes his shots. His open shot. I mean, like today, for example, you saw how they collapsed the defense. They got it out to Spencer Dinwiddie twice on the corner, and he just bricked both of them
Yeah.
in the fourth quarter.
I mean, it's
For the Lakers,
it's a make or miss league. It's been like that for
it's
a
a
long
make or
time.
miss league, man. I really don't have an answer for how teams can get after it defensively. I think you just, I mean, like I said, man, defense is hard, and I think a lot of teams, I think a lot of guys are offensive centric. They think they're, and then another thing is just like I think there's too much of a buddy system in the NBA. I think
I think that's
guys like.
I think that's really what it boils down to here, right? Like
It's too much like, oh, this is my buddy. We train in the off season, yada yada yada. And oh, we play here at this off season tournament. We play at these off season runs in LA or Florida or wherever the hell they're playing at. And I just think guys just don't have that edge anymore, that nastiness.
I mean, you never saw
like
stuff.
you
never saw stuff like that, like when you were like in the '90s or even early 2000s. Like we never saw players hanging out and practicing with other NBA players. Like that was just not a scene.
Yeah, I mean, now you would now. I'm not saying that like a guy like Dominique Wilkins and Michael Jordan, they used to play pickup games sometimes, but it's not like these guys were, oh yeah, we're gonna train like majority of the off season for weeks at a time with each other. No, it's just like, okay, hey, you're gonna be at this spot, okay, I'm gonna be there too. Let's ball it up. It's just it's not like these guys just don't have the competitive edge anymore. I love the way.
I mean, I also think that the fact that like the salary, like NBA salary is spiked like crazy. So like if you get hurt, right, and you're unable to continue to make money, I mean, the amount of money that you're leaving on the table is more now than it's ever been. And so especially when we're talking about the All-Star game, I think this is like one of those things that like I'm not getting hurt in the All-Star game. I realize that there's never been a player that's gotten hurt in the All-Star game. So like there hasn't been that injury that was like, oh, we can't do the All-Star. Like it's just players are like, yeah, we're not gonna risk money to play in a game that is basically meaningless to the NBA.
Look at Paul George, broke his leg in the Olympics or the World Games. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but
guys getting more injured in the World Games or the Olympics than anything. Well, I mean, golly, I mean. Guys in that they used to have amateurs playing in those games instead of the pros.
Yeah.
Before Europeans started.
And then we did win that
better.
gold medal. And then we did win that gold medal that one year. And we're like, oh well, let's go.
Oh yeah. Before the Dream Team, it was it was the last team in the '80s. They're like, oh yeah, we're gonna stop doing this with we can't let the Russians or whatever beat us. Still. But I mean, like I said, man, I don't really know. I like there's certain teams that I like watching defensively. I like watching Minnesota defensively. I like watching OKC defensively. I think if you can have a rim protector, a shot blocker, let's look at all those teams. Look at what I just said. Rudy Gobert.
The Bulls play
Chet Holmgren
on occasion. Like they play excellent defense.
Yeah. It's also like the on-ball defense too. I mean, you got guys that don't know, and I'm not a professional basketball player. I just know I play basketball like my whole life and watching it. But you got a lot of guys like going under screens when they shouldn't be going under screens. I don't know if they're watching tape. I don't know if it's KYP knowing their personnel.
I do that all the time, and I get burnt all the time.
Going under screens and the guys just popping you. It's you see that a lot.
That is straight up a laziness effort thing, 100%.
That is a laziness effort thing. And it's because if you go over the screen, you're gonna get hit with an elbow. You're gonna get.
It's not even that. I mean, it's not even that. Like you like they have the opportunity to drive towards the rim. Like most of the time, like if players like you were like, oh, I'll live with them driving because we have like rim protection there. But like if you go under that screen and you're a 3-point shooter, you're just gonna it's over.
Oh man, all the kids know how to shoot a 3-point shot, man. It's crazy.
Man.
You go
I play basketball at the Y like every day, and like we have these kids that like play and they're shooting shots from like half court, like it's insane.
and
Like,
making them. They practice this shit, man.
yeah, but
They
that
practice it.
a lot of them don't make it is part of the problem, where it just becomes real sloppy basketball all the time. Like it's like
Yes.
not fundamentally sound whatsoever.
Yes, it's not fundamentally sound, but yeah, I mean,
And
like I
but
said, man, defensively, I don't
nobody
know what to do
has
with it.
like nobody has the moxie to like tell young players like, hey, that's not a good shot. Like you
Mm.
made it, that's fine, but it's not a good shot. Like you're not in a rhythm of offense. You're just jacking up threes for literally just to say you can. So like you could literally take the better shot if you just move in like 5 feet.
And, and it also just comes down to this: is that today's NBA, these guys are just way more skilled in terms of shooting prowess than they were back in the day. And that's because the 3-point shot wasn't an emphasis in, the 70s, 80s, even the 90s, early 2000s. The 3-point shot wasn't the biggest emphasis. I mean, I know you needed, a few 3-pointers to swing the game in the balance, in your balance. But now in today's NBA, if you can't shoot a standstill three, if you can't shoot it, like forget trying to shoot a three off the bounce. If you can't sit in the corner and shoot the three with your feet set, then you have no business playing in the NBA.
I agree with
Like
you on
you
that.
have no business playing in the NBA. Like guys like Ben Simmons, I'm still surprised how he's still in the NBA. Well, maybe because he's 6'10" and could create and rebound
that's
and play
because he's getting
defense.
paid $30 million a year.
Once his contract is up, it's like a Taiwan. Here
Yeah.
you go, Taiwan. But it's if you're not blocking shots, if you're not a defensive specialist, like let's look at guys like Walker Kessler, for example. He ain't making 3-point shots, but Walker Kessler's top 5 in blocks. Rudy Gobert's top 5 in blocks. I honestly would love if Wembanyama didn't shoot as many threes as he does.
Yeah,
but he's number 1 in blocks, and he's just as skilled. I mean, he's a guy that is skilled as all hell. Look at a guy like Andre Drummond, who's made a career in this league by just rebound and hustle.
I mean, he's finally making free throws now. Is a latter portion.
He's finally making free throws. He's actually worked on that part of his game. And look at a guy. And last thing, and look at a guy like Brook Lopez, who was not making was not even attempting any 3-point shots.
He wasn't known as a rebounder, block, or like he wasn't known as a defensive player. Like he was literally back to the basket, offensive player, and now he's basically changed his game entirely to go to the modern NBA.
Right, exactly. So it's all about how you adapt. I don't really have an answer how you can fix it defensively. I just think these guys are just more skilled. The shooting prowess is crazy, and I just think. When I think a lot of teams also need to probably maybe slow the pace down if they want and it's hard because they want as many possessions in the game as they can get, and it's like, well, if we slow the game down, then it's if we don't make a shot in this half court offense, then it's kind of, we're kind of doomed in a way, and our team is built for pace and space. Every team is built the same damn near. And it's kind of crazy how every team is a carbon copy of itself.
It's like a lot of parity in the NBA right now. Like,
absolutely.
Teams that play similar, look similar. Like it's like you can watch any team in the NBA, and like this feels like I'm watching basically the Golden State Warriors. Like they've all taken that offense.
Absolutely.
So moving away from just the competitiveness, like let's talk about how you can incentivize players, like teams finishing games, like just like trying to get back. Is there anything you can do to be like, hey, even if your team gets down, like maybe mandatory, like take fouls, like to try to extend the game? Is there anything that can be done to
less back-to-backs?
You think that?
And you know what's crazy? You know what's crazy is that they play less back-to-backs now these days than ever before. Back in the 90s, back in the 80s, back in the 70s, back in the early 2000s, back in the mid-2000s, they played more back-to-backs than they ever did today. So Adam Silver, cut the back-to-backs out, right? I think they start the finals a little bit later than what they usually did in the past, if I'm not mistaken. But I think what you need to do now is I think if you want teams to put out the 100% effort then I think you have to limit the back-to-backs, because like if there's a team that's down 15 with 5 minutes, well, with the 3-point shot now you can get back in the game with 5 minutes. And now if there's a team that's up 25,
if you're playing again tomorrow, you're like, you know what, we'll just
let
this one go.
Nah, we're just gonna check this one out. We got to play tomorrow. But the thing is that these games count. So it's like during the regular season, I mean, you become a creature of habit. If you're going to play lazy in the regular season, if you're not going to output that defensive effort in the regular season, then it's going to show in the playoffs. And I think that a lot of teams just don't show that fight when it comes down to the last 4 or 5 minutes of the game. They get down, 15 points or so, and now teams start throwing in the towel. Oh, we got a game tomorrow, or we're just coming off we just played yesterday. We're gonna rest our guys, for the game on, we're playing Wednesday. We're gonna rest our guys for the game on Friday. You know what I mean? It's
back to backs have been a thing in the NBA since the beginning of the league, right?
Of time,
and we never had this level of issue. So I'm honest. I think you're right. I'm not sure what can be done, like if anything, to like change the culture of the NBA, but like removing back-to-backs would be a good way. Like you incentivize, hey, we'll remove back-to-backs if you play over 35 minutes, your best players over 35 minutes a night at a minimum.
Well, you can't start. It comes on the coaches, though. It's on the coaches too, because the coaches manage this. They're the ones that are like, hey man, I'm gonna take my starters out and put the bench in with 4 minutes left, and it's a 15-point game. I've seen that so many times this season, and it's like I don't understand. I don't understand it. You still got a lot of time left to make a run, make it close to things. Godly, I mean, we've seen guys like T-Mac score what?
Yeah,
a bajillion points in 30 seconds or a minute,
12 or whatever.
8 points in 12 or whatever in a minute.
But that's an outlier than the
that rarely happens. I mean, it's like it's less than 1% of the time.
It's less than 1%.
Less than 1%. But
I mean, think about how many games in history of the league there have been, and how many times
have been like that. I mean, other than
Reggie
Miller. You had Reggie Miller and T-Mac.
2 times in the history of the league out of every game that's ever been played. That's like less than 0.111%.
It's like the odds of making the NBA. I think like you said, like we said, man, I think maybe, taking the back-to-backs out, maybe incentivizing, you have to play, a certain amount of time, if you're, maybe making a tier system of NBA players, which kind of, I don't know how they would do, but a tier system in terms of like tough. Statistics. It is tough, man. It is tough.
Because you're basically going to be disrespecting players no matter what you do. Like if you're like, oh, hey, I'm
a tier 1 player. I'm only going to play 35 minutes a game. I'm going to play 35 minutes, or I'm a tier 2 player. I can only play 28 minutes. What is this shit?
Yeah. It's that's not a system that's going to work. So
there's nothing to fix. There's nothing to fix that. I honestly do believe that if you maybe play less games. I mean, golly, they've been playing 82 games since the 60s. Okay? Like this, what more are we gonna do? If TJ was on the show, TJ would be like, man, what the fuck? What the hell more can we do? Like, we're pampering the shit out these guys by paying them all this money, and now we're gonna keep pampering them and pampering them and pampering them until like it's just like, what the hell else do these guys want? You know what I mean? For them to just play harder. I brought it up about the All-Star game in the article. I said, well, maybe they should do it like a 3-on-3, basketball game, and maybe it'd be a little bit more competitive, like a 3-on-3 tournament, type of deal. But they got to do something, man. We're not moving towards the 3-on-3 game, obviously. But I mean, it's sometimes out here, sometimes some games feel like an All-Star game in a way. Like it feels like the defensive effort isn't there. It feels like, when teams get down by the 3-point shot, they just don't give up. They, we saw it with the Lakers. Like the Lakers, they make a couple bad plays, couple bad turnovers, and they hang their head, and it's kind of like.
Well, they were down by like 15 points with under a minute, like a minute.
Well, it wasn't. I'm not talking about 15. I'm talking about when they were making a run and they were, they were like coming into within 10,
and then
Anthony Davis makes that turnover. it's just like, oh man, damn, we're messing up again over
Yeah.
here, so.
Well, let us know what you think about down in the comment section. What can the NBA do with their quote unquote competitive problem? We don't have a magic wand. We don't really know what the NBA can do. We kind of throw out a couple of suggestions there, but let us know what you're thinking on the comment section. Let's talk about gut talk, man. A staple here at Prime Sports World in the crossover. And I got two teams, and you got two teams?
Yeah, I do.
I'll go first because I just feel like going first.
Okay.
My first team is the 2022-2023 Boston Celtics. With obviously this team was beaten in a 7-game series in the Eastern Conference Finals by the Miami Heat, headlined by Malcolm Brogdon, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Al Horford. Really good team there. Robert Williams, Grant Williams, the usual suspects on that most recent Celtics team that went to the Eastern Conference Finals. They're going to be going up against a team that also fell short of the NBA Finals, fell in the Western Conference Finals, this time 3-4 to the Golden State Warriors as they let a 3-1 lead slip away. It's the 2015-2016 Oklahoma City Thunder. That was headlined obviously by Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook,
Serge Ibaka,
yeah, Nick Collison, Steven Adams was still on this team, Enes Kanter, Anthony Morrow, but yeah, so Deion Waiters was on this roster as well. Andre Roberson, defensive linchpin, Cameron Payne, I think is a rookie, potentially his first season in the league. Oklahoma City.
I think didn't Andre Roberson tear his knee up in that series? Or he tore his knee up the year after?
I think he tore it up the year after that.
The year after, yeah.
Yeah, because he only played 39 games the year after that, I think, or 2 years. He tore his knee up 2 years after this.
Jeez.
But
who do I take?
2015-2016 Thunder or 2022-23 Boston Celtics.
Who lost to the Heat in the Eastern Conference Finals?
Eastern Conference Finals. Thunder obviously fell to the Golden State Warriors in the Western Conference Finals.
And they were up 3-1. I remember that series. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Game 6 Clay, baby.
Man, godly, man. That Boston team. I mean, this is the same Boston team that we're seeing today. All you're adding is Drew Holiday. All you're adding is Drew. I mean,
Drew Holiday.
Drew Holiday and KP and Kristaps Porzingis makes
those are massive upgrades over.
Absolutely. But you still got Derek White, you still got Jason Tatum, you still got. I mean, I wonder, like they almost would have lost in 6 if Derek White doesn't make that miraculous putback. You know what I mean? I
mean, if Game 6 Clay doesn't show up, I mean, the Thunder go to the finals. So
Game 6 Clay. I'm going to go with the Oklahoma City Thunder just because, man, Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant were magical. I mean, those two guys were magical. But I want to say Boston was a little deeper.
They're sure a deeper basketball team. I mean, outside of Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook. I mean, the rest of this roster and Serge Ibaka. I mean, the rest of this roster is kind of just there. Steven Adams was a really young player at the time. I think this is probably one of his first seasons.
Even Boston had, they still had Robert Williams. Remember Robert Williams?
Yeah, Williams.
I think he's injured right now. He's not playing this year. Yeah. So
Al Horford's on this team. Blake Griffin.
Al Horford, a year younger. Al Horford.
I know Danilo Gallinari was banged up, didn't play, but I mean, this is a really deep Boston team. But stars win series. Give me the Oklahoma City Thunder.
Yeah, man. Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant. I mean, they were just phenomenal that season. They should have went to the NBA Finals. That actually, man, I think that would have been their best shot to win an NBA Finals together if they would have beaten. Because I think they would have beat Cleveland.
I think so
that
too.
Season.
Yep.
All right.
Let's go.
So we're staying. It's crazy that you brought up the Thunder. So we're staying in the same franchise. So I got the 95-96 Seattle Supersonics, who were number 1 in the conference, who won the conference, played against the 95-96 Bulls, who ended up losing in 6 games to the Bulls. The greatest, the 72-10 Chicago Bulls. This team was 64-18. They're first in the division, first in the Western Conference, won the conference championship. And we all know who was on this team, right? You had Gary Payton, you had an older Sam Perkins, Detlef Schrempf, young Eric Snow, Sean Kemp, the Rain Man, Sean Kemp, Hershey Hawkins, Nate McMillan was the backup to Gary Payton. So you had that team, and then I have them going against the 2011 and 2012 Oklahoma City Thunder. The Oklahoma City Thunder that won the conference in the lockout shortened season. Remember that season, right?
Yeah, it's the team that lost to the Heat.
Nope, team that lost to the Heat in 5 games. They were first in their division as well. They were second in the Western Conference. Their record was 47-19. I believe they would probably have a similar record to they wouldn't have a similar record to the Seattle Supersonics, but they probably would be maybe like 10 games behind of what the Seattle Supersonics were at 64-18. But obviously this had a young Kevin Durant, a young Russell Westbrook, a young James Harden off the bench.
Yeah, and they had the D Wade stopper on that team.
Yeah, they had
Thabo Sefolosha, baby.
They had Thabo Sefolosha, yeah. They had Kendrick Perkins. This was their starting 5 was Russell Westbrook, Kevin Durant, Thabo Sefolosha. I think it was Kendrick Perkins and it was Russell Westbrook, Thabo Sefolosha, Kevin Durant,
Serge Ibaka too.
Serge Ibaka and Kendrick Perkins were all were the starters on that team. And then Derek Fisher coming off the bench, backing up Westbrook. Remember Daquan Cook, Nick Collison was coming off the bench. Cole Aldrich was coming off the bench. They had a young Reggie Jackson. He was a rookie in this season. I believe Eric Maynor was injured for that series, but he was a pretty damn good backup as well off the bench. They had Nazir Muhammad, not young Nazir Muhammad, but they had Nazir Muhammad on that team as well.
Man, you know what's super depressing, right? So you always something that's super, super depressing. So like in terms of like life, right? So Serge Ibaka is an old NBA player, right?
Yeah.
You know who's older than Serge Ibaka?
That's playing right now?
No, just in general.
Who?
Me.
Oh my gosh. Older than Serge Ibaka. Yeah, but those knees ain't your knees ain't older than Serge Ibaka.
I don't know about that, man. I don't know about that. But that's just so depressing. Like you think of Serge Ibaka as like this old NBA player, and then like you check his age, you're like, oh, I'm older than this guy.
And obviously, this team in the playoffs beat the San Antonio Spurs, right, 4-2, who went on to win an NBA championship against the Heat 2 years later, and went to the NBA championship the year
next year.
after.
With all that being said, I gotta. If you remember correctly, James Harden was abysmal in that NBA Finals.
Yes,
I will take the Supersonics. I just think that the glove would be able to put a little bit of clamps on, obviously out of Serge on Russell Westbrook. I don't know who would be guarding Kevin Durant on that Supersonics team, but I'm not sure who's guarding Sean Kemp on that Thunder team. So I will take those Seattle Supersonics. I think that series would go 6 games.
So, golly, I want to see what I don't know what Sean Kemp was averaging. Let me see what he was averaging. Sean Kemp was averaging 19. He was 19.6 and 11.4 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 steal, 1.6 blocks. Hershey Hawkins was averaging 15.6. I believe he was starting. Gary Payton, 19 and 7 with 2.9 steals. And then you had Detlef Schrempf was averaging 17. So this Seattle Supersonics team was deep in its own right. They had about 4 or 5 guys.
Sam Perkins on this team too.
Sam Perkins, older Sam Perkins, right? Sam Perkins can still ball here. And so they had more weapons. They had 5 guys that were in double figures for the season. I would say give me the Seattle Supersonics as well, because they're older. They're an older team. Played a lot longer, I guess, than this Oklahoma City team. As we all remember, right? Because James Harden left to the Houston Rockets the very next year. That young OKC Thunder team was so young, they didn't know. It's kind of like like when those young teams are like listen for example, Green Bay Packers. They didn't know what the magnitude of the game was when they went into Dallas and they beat Dallas this season. But it's like that Oklahoma City. They didn't know. Well, they did know, but it's just like they didn't have pressure on them. It's like Oklahoma City that year played with no pressure, right? It's like we're a young team. We're only getting better, and they went on. They're one of the best teams in the Western Conference. They went against a team in the San Antonio Spurs who were had that last glimpse of a championship window. They actually won a championship, but they had that last glimpse and they actually beat them. And so everybody was like, man, this Oklahoma City team is going to be so good for so many years. And that just ended up not being the case.
It's true. Yeah, it's true.
I
also have to take George Karl over Scott Brooks. It's kind of one of those underrated things we don't talk about as much when we do these kind of like team matchups. But yeah, George Karl is an elite head coach when it comes
Hall of Fame coach.
The Hall of Fame coach when it comes to Scott Brooks, who's had a fine NBA career, but is no George Karl. But yeah,
and I just wish that Oklahoma City. I just wish they would have just stayed the Seattle Supersonics.
Me too. I love that. I love that.
Yeah, I love
the colors
and
the logo.
The color. Seattle's just a great basketball city. You know what I mean? It's just
when the next TV marketing deal comes, they probably will get another NBA team. We'll see what ends up happening as that moves forward. But yeah, thank you very much for checking us out here at the Crossover. I'm David Huffman. Right there is Israel Rivera. We talked a little bit about the competitiveness in the NBA and what can be done to make that a little bit more competitive. But we didn't come up with a lot of really good solutions. So let us know what you think down in the comments section.
It's hard. It's hard to make some solutions, man.
Yeah, but please like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. We'll be back here tomorrow breaking down the AFC North. You don't want to miss that content. And Izzy, what do we do? Hit the prime, my friend.
We bring the heat, ladies and gentlemen. Bringing the heat on a Sunday night, baby.
And it's supposed to be 60 degrees tomorrow, so let's go.
It's supposed to be great this week. You guys have stay safe and go out and enjoy some outdoor activities this week. Go to the basketball court, go walk your dog, go get some extra exercise.
But walk your cat. If you have a cat, walk your cat.
I've seen some people do that at leashes on cats. It's weird. Are you one of those guys?
No, I'm not. But I do have a leash. I do have a leash for my cat, but I never bring her out. So I will see you guys tomorrow. You guys all be safe and have a good night.